Oh, let's finish on China because
Okay.
that's a huge wild card. What happens there in the next 20 years?
There's a Western net and there's a China net. The Western net is Western Europe and the United States and the free world, and it revolves around the US dollar, the English language, Western law, and Western technology. And it is dominated by Google and Facebook and Twitter and Apple and the US Supreme Court and English and Amazon. And that's been getting stronger for the past 20 years. In fact, it started to form with the internet and it's got stronger and stronger. And then there's the Great Wall of China, and behind the Great Wall of China, they block Twitter, they block Facebook, they block Google. Apple, they have a love-hate relationship with, but they block most of these other things. And they have their own Weibo and WeChat and Alibaba and Alipay. They don't want Google Pay. They don't want Apple Pay, right? And they have the CNY, the RMB, and they have the Chinese language, and they have Chinese law, and they have the Chinese culture. So there's the China sphere of influence. There's the Western sphere of influence. That has been that way for quite a while, more than a decade, probably 20 years. It's been getting stronger and stronger. It was always that way, but it became visible to us after the internet revolution because you saw the VPNs and the firewalls and the like, right? There is a controlled flow of information. What you just saw with the China crackdown is it drove a China exodus. It drove an exodus of Bitcoin mining and Bitcoin holdings from China. That has been gradually coming for the past 4 years. And this was a pretty aggressive acceleration of that in about a 4-week to 6-week time frame. What does that mean? It means that people holding billions of dollars of digital property on the Bitcoin network in China, they had to sell it. They had to force liquidate it in a hurry at a discount. The winners were the people that bought the Bitcoin. My company bought 500 million worth of Bitcoin at 37,000. I would have paid double. I would have paid triple. We were going to buy it. Okay, so we're the beneficiaries. The people that sold it to me, they had to sell it under pressure in a hurry. And then the Bitcoin mining equipment, the Bitcoin miners had half the mining market. It was worth $10 billion a year. They were growing at 100% a year. It would have been worth $1 trillion to them. They had to leave China. The equipment is that the Bitcoin mining network is the security network of Bitcoin. Now it's going to Siberia and Iceland and Canada and the US and Texas and El Salvador and Argentina and Africa. It's a benefit to the rest of the world. It's a loss to China. But so is Google Maps, a loss to China and a benefit to the rest of the world,
Right.
So when the Chinese found out that DD was tracking telemetry of the DD network, and they shut them down. Okay, well, that's a negative, but Android tracks telemetry, and if you shut it down and you can't track telemetry, you don't get the AI that tells you how to drive, and you have to develop it yourself. So the view is, we're just going to do all that ourselves, right? The Chinese have basically, driven digital property in the form of Bitcoin out. They will try to replace it with the Chinese CBDC, but they're not replacing digital property with digital property. They're replacing digital property with digital currency. The digital currency is losing 20 to 25% of its value a year. They don't have any digital property. Control of the digital property network is going to shift to the West. Good for us. Good for the West. Good for the American way. Good for the US dollar as the reserve currency of the world, because what that means is I got to believe 5 billion people end up on the Western net. There's already 1.5 billion on the China net, and I guess if they get another billion, the big question is it 2.5 billion on China and 5.5 billion on the Western net, or is it 2 and 6. It's something like that. But I bet on the Western net, Brian. Just like because Google is a national asset, and Apple is a national asset, but all the application companies, they're all national assets. And if you got a bet between the market economy and decentralized capitalism and creative destruction, a la Schumpeter, or you bet on central planning economy, ultimately you bet on the market economy because it's Darwinian. There's not a single educated person in the world that would have put a bunch of college dropouts in charge of the tech industry in the U.S. Bill Gates is a dropout. Mark Zuckerberg is a dropout. Larry Ellison is a dropout. Steve Jobs is a dropout. Michael Dell is a dropout. Right? A lot of college dropouts with a lot of power, in the world. And normally centralized economies put people with PhDs and master's degrees from good universities in charge of stuff. And sometimes there's intelligent people from good universities, but a lot of times if they do the right thing, it's because they got beat up by dropouts or they got beat up by the market economy and they had their head handed to them because they got arrogant. And someone doing something that they disagreed with, blows up their beautiful model of the world, and they react. And the result is natural selection and evolution towards something better.